Sean, a very interesting environment you're in. Could you please explain why that is?
So I am in the US military and there's a lot going on recently here, so I had to find a quiet room to take this call out of respect. So I am in a random room right now.
Fair enough. Okay. Could you give an introduction about yourself?
Yes, I'm Sean King. I spend my time usually trying to better myself mentally and physically. I started to join the military because I want to be a Navy SEAL, so I try my best to work not only physically but mentally because it takes a lot of grit to have a profession like that, and I take care of the people that are around me.
Very interesting. Okay. How did you end up finding out about the real world and why did you decide to join it considering the profession you're taking?
I've always been a level of interest with Andrew Tate, and I've seen what he's done with his life and the amount of people he's changed lives with. So it's kind of hard to see that pass by in videos and hearing it and hearing successes and seeing successes without actually putting yourself in their shoes. So I had to get started.
Interesting. Okay. And what campus did you get into when you joined?
The stocks course and AI content creation, which is a newer one.
Or, and then how was the learning material there? Was it useful for you? Did you learn good things? How different would it have been compared to
Yes, it
what you could have found on the internet?
way better than the internet. They are carefree in the matter that they don't sugarcoat anything. They tell you in direct, small videos, which are very helpful to learn because it's the information needed to make you successful rather than filling in with a bunch of filler words or filler information that you can kind of just search on the internet for. So it does help.
Okay. And did you have any stock trading experience prior to joining?
I did, yes. I
And
did, yes.
how much? And how much more insights did you get from the real world, considering your previous experience?
So my knowledge before the real world, it started in 2016 from actually my grandfather before he passed away. And he taught me everything I knew to grow to 10,000. And then from so on, I expanded from the real world.
Okay. And what did you end up growing it to from the 10,000?
255,000.
Damn. In what time span?
A year in 2 months.
A year and 2 months. From 10,000 to 250,000. Okay.
Yes.
Let's go into that. What did you actually do? Was it swing trading, short term trading? What? And did you use indicators? What kind of indicators? Like, you give me a rundown how you went from 10K to 250K.
So I took the more of a long-term method. I used the reinvestment of dividends I got from some of the bigger companies that were well established, and I used that to with my financial advisor to make well trades in order to expand the amount of dividends I get each month or each quarter. And I use that with my existing money from off odd jobs off of websites into that uh, brokerage account, and I expand it from there. So I use a risk factor of 8 out of 10.
What does that mean? 8 out of 10.
So my stockbroker, he mentioned that there's a risk factor when you trade or when you do stocks, and the risk, higher risk, high reward, low risk, low reward. And I've taken a series of big risks which have, in my side, accumulated over a certain amount of time more money.
Interesting. What does taking bigger risks mean? Could you give more specifics in terms of, let's say, what stocks you invested in at the time and where the majority of the growth was from what moves?
Yes, it was a lot of EFTs and a lot of Apple stock, Walt Disney. It was, I did invest in one company. It was called Chesapeake Granite Wash. It was a oil washing company, and I invested 20 grand into there when it was a kind of a startup company. and I made over double over the series of 4 to 6 months.
Hmm.
And then I sold the stock before it actually plummeted, so I got very lucky with that one.
Interesting. Okay. How do you actually make that much money from the big established companies, though? I still can't fully grasp it. Could you explain?
Yes. So I did go after the stocks that had, or the companies that had the highest amount of dividends that you would get. And I reinvested 100% of what I made from the stock market back into my portfolio and ended up, I guess, with that over the years.
But okay, in terms of dividends, surely it's a low payout rate in terms of percentages. At least I'd imagine so. So how do you actually end up going from 10,000 to 250,000 off of that?
I would say I made about 3 grand every quarter, depending on how well it was doing.
Hmm.
But it was also my odd jobs that I was reinvesting 100% of my money into to make the stocks better.
Okay. And again, there's still a gap there, something missing, because you're saying 3K per month or per quarter from dividends. But again, that would mean what in a year's time you'd have, let's say, 50,000 from that maximum. But there's still another like over 150,000 missing.
So I did have a good chunk of money because I used to live in Kennesaw, Georgia, and my mom and I were 50-50 on the house, and we recently bought a house in Florida. So we sold that home, and I got 50% of the stake, and I pocketed 25% of my 50, and the other 25% I reinvested back in the stock market.
Okay, got it. Okay, now it's starting to make more sense. So it wasn't purely, again, just trading from 10,000 to 250,000. There are some other things on the side. So if you were to estimate roughly how much it was purely from stocks that you made, what figure would you give?
To be generous to 25,
25,000?
225,000, yes.
225 purely from stocks. But I guess, yeah, you are reinvesting,
I
so it's
believe
hard
so.
to say. It wasn't. Do you know roughly the initial investment then? You said 10,000, but since then you invested more. So in total, how much have you actually put into stock market? Do you know?
It is hard to say because every amount of money I would grasp, I would always deposit into the market. If I were to do a rough estimate of my own money, I would say 40, 50 grand.
Okay, got it. So it's still a very solid improvement in terms of stocks in profit. Okay, good. I'm happy now with that. So we can move on to what actually made you decide to become a Navy SEAL or to go through training to try become one.
So I fell in love with it when I was actually a freshman in high school. And even in eighth grade, I actually met one in real life. And I met, I don't know if you know him, Jocko Willink.
Yeah.
He, the way he handled himself and the professionalism and his mannerisms and the way he carried himself, it kind of grasped my attention. So I did my research, I talked to recruiters, and eventually I went into a PST phase, which is called a physical screening test. And it was a 500-meter swim, max push-ups in 2 minutes, max sit-ups in 2 minutes, max pull-ups from a dead hang, and a 1.5 mile run. And I talked to a SEAL. I'm not sure what SEAL team he was in, but he was 60 years old, so he's an older SEAL. And the way he described the SEAL teams, it really it was something I could see myself doing for 10 years. And the brotherhood, the mental grit you get from having struggles, because I feel like as a man or anybody, you have to induce struggles into your life in order to actually grow. Otherwise, you don't really learn. And I love the water too, so it is hard not to say no to this. And combat is a very high stress job, but I love the aspect of it because you can create great friends in the amount of struggle that you induce with each other.
Hmm. Right.
So over the months and year during the PST phase before I actually enlisted, I eventually passed and I went off to Navy SEAL training where I got injured about 10 months into training and then I got sent here for holding until I get out.
Injured, and are you still injured, or have you recovered?
I am right now. I should be fully healed in about a year.
Ah,
Time
and
frame from the
what kind
doctor.
of what kind of injury was it?
So I have a slip disc in my L5 part of my spine and lower part, and then I broke my leg. It's the ankle connecting to the back part of the shin, um, and that snapped in half. I still have the X-rays from it too.
Wow.
So
What were you doing for that to happen?
I believe it was just wear and tear. I won't blame any specific exercise on it, but I will say it was probably from the spine injury. I'm guessing it was from carrying a log from a hold with your arms straight out in kind of a curling motion, and we go up and down a sand berm like that, and for hours, or do different exercises with it. So I guess the wear and tear from my abs not having the best support, it messed up my spine after a while.
Damn,
So.
that's rough. And okay, but you're saying in a year you recover. So what kind of exercises or what are you meant to be doing to recover for those two injuries?
So right now I'm enrolled in physical therapy. So I go 3 times a week to a physical therapy office where they make me do a series of stretches, exercises, and work on the treadmill to start to get my cardio back up.
Okay. Cardio backup and just over time, I guess, yeah, repair. Fair enough. So that's something that you can
Yes.
just repair through physical therapy, huh?
Yes, surprisingly, it wasn't as bad to be fixed by surgery.
Okay, good,
So.
good, good, good. All right, then you mentioned AI campus. What were you doing in the content creation AI campus? What have you learned from there?
So I was actually trying to start multiple Instagrams that kind of test my feel and see how well, I knew the material, how acquainted I was with it, how well I knew it, how quickly I can actually produce things. And one of my Instagrams actually got banned for surprisingly, well, not really surprisingly, but I used to post Andrew Tate material on there on Instagram. So I got banned from that, but I do have another philosophy page that has around 3,000 followers right now that is ever growing. So from there, I'm just gonna keep producing that and see where I go from there.
Okay, fair enough. Now, has your average day changed at all since you've joined the Real Watch? And if so, how?
The average day. It's changed my outlook on things. I'm part of the free email list that Andrew Tate has, where I get an email every day, and I read that every morning. Sometimes I have to admit I do not read them, and I check up on them later. I have to admit, and it's changed my outlook on it because I used to believe that everyone struggled and only like a few people had money. And it does mention that a lot of people really don't have money, but when people are well networked and they have a decent amount, it seems like their whole lifestyle is full of wealth and surrounded by wealth. And it's changed my mindset in the fact that I used to believe that you had to be born into things in order to achieve it, at least financially wise. And it's kind of shown me that I'm able to be more self-made and not have to have a huge loan from the bank or be born in a family that has a huge inheritance.
Or once again, it comes down to mindset. If you have the right mindset, then yeah, you can go from nothing to millionaire if that's what you want. And I guess
Correct.
you're training it yourself by through discipline in a different area. I'm sure later on you can translate it to, let's say, when you go into civilian life to building a business or whatever else you choose to do. It should translate well.
Certainly.
Hmm. And now you said you liked water. Was that just from childhood? What do you actually like about it? Because I'll give my own personal experience. I used to do competitive swimming to the point where I just, after a while, I didn't want to go into a swimming pool for several years, just because it was every single day, nonstop for years on end. When I was younger, but this was younger, maybe 10 years old, and for maybe 5 or 6 years to where I was doing competitive things. So after a while, it just got too much for me. Whereas for you, what you're saying, you just enjoy the water. What do you like about it? That's what I'm trying to get to.
I find peace in the water. Surprisingly, when I hold my breath underwater, it's a certain calmness to where I'm weightless, one, and two, I don't hear anything but just my own heartbeat. There's something calm about that because all the world's distractions go away. And it's kind of like a calm place for me. And then when I'm swimming, we did the combat side stroke. So I guess it's like it's a side stroke, but with an extra movement to it. And you start to get in a rhythm. And I don't know what it is. It's just like a synchronized move that one takes your cardio down what a lot, but two makes you feel way better after you finish it. There's something about the instant gratification after you finish a certain amount of distance swimming that I get that I can't really explain in words.
Interesting. Okay. And then the exercises you see from sneak peeks into Navy SEAL training, did you actually do those as well? Like where an instructor might try, where you're like tied up, or an instructor is trying to drown you in a way, or something along those lines. Did you get to that part or no?
So surprisingly, yes, I did. I did get to that point, and it's actually one of the first days of. So they have a first phase, second phase, and third phase. So first phase is probably the most physically hard it could possibly be before it gets technically hard. But there is a pre-buds, which a pre-first phase that you go through in order to actually qualify to get in the first phase. And one of the qualifications was a 2 mile swim in the ocean. And in the pool, you practice your hands and feet tied with a rope. And I thought it was to be a little more of a struggle than it actually was, but it really wasn't. It kind of just dolphin kick the majority of the way and then tilt your head up to take a breath with your hands behind your back, and you go along the whole way like that. So I did get to that certain point, but it actually really isn't that hard unless you were very sore from workouts before.
Oh, okay. And I guess it's a mental thing as well, because you have your hands and feet
That is
tied.
true.
So yeah, as long as you're relaxed, I guess you can get through it. Whereas if you're stressing about it mentally, that's where some people break, I'd imagine.
That is true.
Okay. Nice. Interesting. All right. Then what would you say for biggest challenge when you're implementing lessons from the real world? What kind of challenges did you face?
Hmm. That's a good one. That's a good one. Challenges are, I used to wonder where people got or pulled out a certain drive in them. Like I could physically push myself past a lot of limits I thought possible or I thought impossible. But when it comes to some of the quote unquote boring things that you need to get done, I get bored very easily. And I remember one specific quote. I don't know who it was from, but I saw it somewhere in the real world. It was sometimes you have to do the things that are uh, boring because they are necessary for your progression to be, I'm butchering the words here, beg my pardon, but to be great. So I would say I would hop in the real world every day and I would always find one thing that would make me sit back and actually think rather than just hearing people chit chat about random things they saw throughout the day.
Mhm. Okay. And do people around you know that you're in the real world and that you're supporting Andrew Tate? And if so, what's their reaction?
I do have a few, yes. In the military, it's a little I have to watch myself because I am in the military, but America has definitely shown their side of what they like to be on the internet and not to be on the internet. I do have a few friends. I keep a very close circle. I have a friend who's like a brother to me. I've known for about 8 years. He actually introduced me to one of the first videos of Andrew Tate on YouTube I've ever seen before all that stuff happened. And he obviously appreciates what he does, and he's seen what it's done for me as well and for him. And I do have two friends here as well. So other than that, no one else really knows.
Okay.
And my mother. And my mother.
All right. And what do you think? Would your life be much different had you not joined the real world? What kind of trajectory was it heading in?
I would say it was heading towards being lost. I will say that I did a lot of work myself, but it did help to have the virtual mentors I did. So having something like the real world and being able to see a community that kind of grows and keeps each other accountable, it's hard to see people go through great things and do great things and sit back and just watch it without doing something yourself.
All right.
So I would say the real world and other virtual mentors and real life mentors have helped me tremendously trying to solve what life is
All right.
or what my life will be.
Solid. And since you're on this trajectory, where do you see your life heading in the short term, medium term, and long term?
I would say short term, one, heal from my injuries. Two, have more mental grit and being able to help the people that are in my circle. I feel like that's a huge thing. If I'm able to help the people in my circle, we're both able to rise together. That's a lot better than me just rising and them staying the same or falling. Long term, being a very capable man, having the mindset of iron. That's a very cliche way of saying it, but that's the only way I can possibly think of it as physical iron. Adaptable, have the freedom not to really worry about spending my time for money rather than for my money working for me. Because once you get financials out of the way, you can kind of focus on the other things in life. Yes, you have to check up on the financials sometimes, but it's not majority of your time. So adaptable, adjustable, financially free, and working on myself.
Okay. Very solid. And I'm happy to wrap up there with a final question then. So, for people who are unsure about joining the real world because they may think it could be a scam for the $50, what advice would you have to them?
See, there is a lot of courses that will cost even over $1,000 online for one course. What I noticed about the real world is you're not going to get really anything better for that price. It is $50 for 18 and 19 different ways to learn how to make money. You really can't beat it, plus a community. And anybody who really thinks that it's a scam, they'll find out the hard way.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. And cool. So Sean, quite a unique interview here because you're someone in military. I think the only other person I've interviewed who's been from military is Seth. I don't know if you've seen the interview with him, but yeah, I don't think it was in his military uniform though. So that's a first. Pretty cool. And yeah, thank you for sharing your story. Quite inspiring that you're planning on being a Navy SEAL. I'm sure it's a lot of people's dreams to do, but they just never got around to doing it, whether it's for mentality or other reasons. But yeah, for sure, an admirable thing. And congratulations as well on your success, because financially you're doing super well. For how old are you?
21.
There you go, 21, and already super solid on mindset. Financials getting sorted this early on, so you have great things ahead of you. And I look forward to seeing how that progresses. Would be good to do a follow up with you at some point in the future to see again, hold you accountable to what you said and to check in on your progress. And yeah, until
Thank you
then,
so much.
I wish you all the best, Sean.
Thank you so much, sir.